everybody. Welcome to Top of the Hops. I'm your host, Mike Riker, and join me for the fourth time on my channel. That's right, number four. It is the great Brent Arnold from the Elvis Nation channel, which I absolutely love. Brent, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, Michael, I four times, and I love it when I'm participating in something that I'm also a fanboy of because I
I
watch all the episodes, even if it's a topic I'm not familiar with. I love watching people break down a topic.
I appreciate that. So, as you can see from Brent's background, this will not be an Elvis episode. This will be an Office episode. So, but before we do that, Brent, what's going on with your channel these days on Elvis Nation?
We have our Christmas episode today, but by the time this comes out, it will already have been on. So you can catch it on replay still. Every year,
Yes.
I have Leon Smith come and curate a playlist. And it's been a great year. You've hit the three-time mark as a host.
Yes. Yes, I've had a lot of fun with that. The last one we did was the Elvis Memphis recordings, which was a lot of fun. And I think
Which
I
opens for a second installment too.
yes, and I think we were on for I think we talked for almost 2 hours. 2 hours. You gotta cut it down a little bit. So, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. And you're right with Leon. You do the Christmas show with Leon, those are some of my favorite shows. The one you did in 2022 was awesome with Leon. I think it was almost 3 hours long. And
Yeah.
Leon told this great story about how he reconnected with his wife through the Elvis movie back in 2022, and he tells some great stories. Those episodes are a must watch and a must listen. No doubt about it.
Yeah, we try to cut the running time. So if any of us talks too long, we do what the Oscars does and just has the orchestra play us out and fade us. And
So yeah, definitely looking forward to that. So, but before we do that, what are we drinking today? I know you're not into beer, but what are we drinking today? Are we drinking some soda? What are we
yes,
drinking today?
today well, it's funny because I was looking for a non-alcoholic craft beer and they didn't have anything that looked the store wasn't well stocked. So I said,
Okay.
okay, so I'll go to an exquisite. I don't know if you could see the cup or not, but it is
Yes, I can see it.
Pepsi Zero,
Okay.
which I have to kind of watch my sugar, so it's a good substitute. Busy but not precocious.
There
A
you
little
go.
oak, and I'll use something theme where Michael Scott drank the wine that time. He goes, it has an oaky afterbirth, and
Yeah. We'll get there.
yeah.
Yes, that's a
But
great one.
it's it's a good caffeine fix. I'm wired. I'm ready to go, and but yeah, it is. And the place has it on sale for $1 any size. Now,
Oh, that's
if you're
good.
saving money, like in any situation, all of a sudden that seems like life is beautiful. When you get older, you get happy about little stupid things like, wow,
Yes.
99-cent pop, or we call it pop here, but yeah.
Yeah, especially when it's that price. Yeah, we get especially in these days where everything we just went shopping and spent so much money with Christmas. So I get when you see something like that that's for $1, you definitely get excited about it. So yeah, I get that. I'm glad you brought up non-alcoholic beer just before we get into our top five Office episodes. Um, it's funny. I've been the beer business is kind of dwindling a little bit. Read some articles over the past few weeks about how a lot of breweries, especially around me, have been closing, which is sad. The beer business is not really booming like it was back in the pandemic era. Um, and I was just thinking about that, and it says that the younger people are not drinking beer these days. So I think what breweries have to do is kind of not only have their good beers, but I think they should go out of the box a little bit and do non-alcoholic beers and do maybe some craft cocktails. I think that might bring in some of those people because there's this great company called Athletic Brewing, and all they do is non-alcoholic beers, and they do all kinds of styles, whether it's a stout, an English pub ale. They're all non-alcoholic, and I'm wondering if these breweries, like, I'll ask you the question, Brent, for someone who doesn't drink, if you knew there was a brewery out there that was serving non-alcoholic beer, would you go to one?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah, there you
first of
go.
all, a lot of us who are teetotalers aren't doing it out of being virtuous or
Right.
anything like that. It's simply because I have an addictive personality and I just would not be suited to
Understood.
handle it. But boy, do I love a taste of a very good one. And they've come a long way. And it's sort
Very
of like
much so.
diet soda. They've come in a long way where you can even get someone who would hate anything like that, like an O'Doul's 20 years ago,
Yeah.
could find a craft equivalent of that. Very, and I see myself getting. I think if they did that more, and it just shows you that Gen Z is running things right now.
They
And
are.
what we thought, Michael, I was thinking this the other day. I was telling my friend, I said, when we were younger, the mom and pop restaurants were looked at as old hat, but the hip place to be was Chili's or any of that.
Yeah.
And to them, that's their parents' restaurant now.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm
Absolutely.
wondering if beer is either if it's an ebb and flow thing. Now I wouldn't say that could be the case in like places like the UK or something because I think
True.
it's so much more of an ingrained thing. But America is very trend roller coastery kind of thing, and so I could see it coming around again if you like you said, make it very accessible, add cocktail options to it because
Yes.
I think that yuppie kind of speakeasy cocktail thing is the thing right now.
Yeah, and also too, what I thought was eye catching was the hard seltzers, which I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest with you, but they are selling a lot more than the beer is right now. So if you have those options like a hard seltzer, like a non-alcoholic beer, like you say, craft cocktail to add to these brewery, because I've said on my shows before, going to a brewery is much different experience than going to a bar. You go to a brewery, it's very family friendly. They allow their dogs. They have a lot of games. You can watch, TV. There's always something going on. I've been to like contests there. We've had raffles at a lot of breweries. So they make it a lot of family friendly, more of a party atmosphere where a bar you're just kind of sitting there getting drunk. Where I think the brewery is a much more family friendly atmosphere. So if you bring those types of things like I said, a non-alcoholic beer or a hard seltzer, I think you get more people in, like those people who are in their 20s or 30s that are not drinking beer, maybe to those breweries.
I think so because the breweries that I've been to before, I notice there's a lot of camaraderie.
Yes, very much so.
And it's more of a healthier atmosphere than sometimes with bars, there's an anger atmosphere.
Yeah, I think at a brewery, those people who are there who are drinking beer are they like me. I drink it for I like the taste of it. I like the art of it. I have one or two and I'm good. I don't need to go out there and drink six or seven, get myself sloshed. I feel
Well,
like
there's
at
a
people
hobby aspect to it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, it's actually an art to me. So I love the way they craft it. I love the way it comes together. So yeah, I just want to get your 2 cents on that because I think it's intriguing how unfortunately the brewery business is kind of dwindling a little bit. And I
For
think
now,
there for now, but I think there's options out there. Like I said, if you have a chance, and I'm going to try this probably tomorrow because I know my distributor has it. Athletic Brewing has so many options when it comes to non-alcoholic beer. I would love to try just one or two and see how it compares to a beer that I do like. So I'm looking forward to that. So
yeah,
hopefully
and
maybe that
I think people need a healthy extension to go
yes.
because you know what? I see that, believe it or not, in your Facebook posts. I'm always looking at it and go, Michael's look like he has 20 times of a better time than I'm having. Like I go, Michael is living. Michael is he's in that moment. He's in that, and you'd be surprised what just a picture conveys. You're always like smiling with someone. People that I don't even know, I've seen them twice on your Facebook posts that show up on my wall, and I go, "Oh yeah, that's the lady that owns that brewery or something that
Yeah.
he's really cool with," and stuff like that. And it does. It seems like God. If I were there, I would love to like go and hang.
Yeah. It's become the beer has become a little bit of an obsession, but in a good way. Like I said, I have one or two, and I'm good. I just love the taste of it and like the craft of it. So speaking of, I am doing a Sam Adams today. I had a Sam Adams on one of my other episodes where I did top five Bruce Willis movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm highlighting them today too because this is the winter season, and this is called the Old Fezziwig Ale. Of course, old Fezziwig from the Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
So, as it says here, just to read it real quick, like the character that inspired this spiced ale is warm, festive, and worthy of a celebration all its own. Its full body accompanies a deep malt character, sweet toffee flavors, and rich dark caramel. So,
Ooh.
yeah, it's a rich and spiced ale. Uh, and I will say, Sam Adams, even though it's one of the kind of like OGs in the beer world, it's still one of my favorites. I love what they do. Uh, and this is kind of like. I've had this before, so it's very good.
Now,
Uh,
is that a lager or pilsner?
it's an ale. It's a rich and
Okay.
spiced ale. So
Okay.
it's at 5.9%. And what I like about this, it's got all kind of like the holiday flavors. So cinnamon, nutmeg, a little ginger, and it's got like a little, it reminds me almost like a ginger snap cookie to it. Uh
Ooh.
yeah, and if you smell it, it's got that really nice cinnamon, nice clove. It's got a little hint of orange zest, which I like. This is really good. So if you're into these kind of ales,
Uh-huh.
and it does give you that warm feeling inside. I call this like a winter warmer kind of ale. So a nice cozy up on a blanket on the couch watching your favorite Christmas movie. This is a nice beer to do that with. So Brent, here's to you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. How is it?
It's so good. You know what? And this is gonna be funny to say, but I do not like fruitcake. However, in a beer, it almost tastes like a fruitcake flavor, and it's really nice. It's got like kind of like that dark fruit flavor, kind of like a dark cherry type flavor with a little mix of cinnamon and clove and orange. It's really nice. It's got really a lot of those nice holiday flavors to it. I really enjoy this one.
Well, I have to say this, Michael. I noticed that when I talk to people about your show, I always say that you have this way of breaking it down because sometimes you correlate the drink to the season. You do. I go, you would almost take someone who's never had a beer, make them want to go out and try it in a way that the Beach Boys wanted people to move out to California or something back then. I
Yeah.
go, all of a sudden, like beer seems really, and I never gave beer much of a second thought before. And I'm like, so you got me kind of like looking into craft beers and stuff because I said there is a because I think we grew up in the era of it was just the idiot sitting there just popping open can after can and throwing it. It was
Yeah.
all piss water stuff. And then all of a sudden it became elevated because I was a liquor store worker back in 92. And yeah, there were a couple. I think the idea of an exotic beer was like Sapporo, which is a Japanese beer
Right.
from back
Yeah.
then. That was as far as it got.
Yeah.
And now I
Absolutely.
look at it in the grocery store, it looks so interesting, the different palettes that can be entertained and stuff. And you would think that would grow right now because this seems like it'd be the golden age.
Yeah, they're doing a great job with their with beers and stuff with so many flavors like this one. And you're right. I was the same way. I didn't get into beer till I was in my 40s because I wasn't a beer fan. I taste Bud or Michelob Light. I'm like, this sucks. But then I got into kind of stuff like Blue Moon and Sam Adams, which I like, and I'm like, oh, this I can do, and that's what kind of gravitated me towards more beer. But yeah, Sam Adams has always been one of my favorites. They've always put out good products, and this one's one of their better ones. This is actually part of their winter pack. So they actually do like a holiday white ale, kind of like a winter lager, and they do this oak vanilla stout, which is oak vanilla
That
porter.
sounds good,
Yeah,
actually.
which I had on my show a couple of weeks ago, and that was really good. But this one is up there with them. So yeah, this is really
Oh,
good. So yeah. All
awesome.
right, let's get to it.
Yes, sir.
The Office. Were you an Office fan when it came out? Because I'll be honest with you, Brent, I didn't. I saw the Office episode here and there, but me and my wife binge watched it during COVID. So I'm one of those late bloomers to The Office. But were you right there with it when
I,
we finished it within I think a month?
well,
We're
it's
so
funny,
invested.
Michael. We all act like COVID really hurt our lives and all that, but the people who made shows like The Sopranos and The Office stuff, they hit pay dirt during COVID because they
Absolutely.
exposed a whole new fan base to their shows, respectively. And so, yeah, I liked it. I watched, the finale when it aired. I tried to catch as much as I could, but I was going back to school at the time. I was going through a lot of things in my life, so I couldn't be ever present. When you're in your 30s and 40s, you just don't have that ability to just absorb every episode every week at the exact time as you do when you're 17 or 14 or something.
Right. Yeah, and it wasn't like it was a huge star. And I never watched the British version. Have you ever watched the British
Oh yeah.
version of? You have. Okay. I have never watched that, so I'll be interested to get your take on that.
They do it like the way the Brits do it. They'll have like two
Uh,
seasons of 6 episodes each.
okay.
And so it was very limited, and you could tell they used a lot of the jokes for the first season of The Office that series.
Oh, interesting, interesting. Yeah, so I remember Steve Carell from what I remember first from the movie Bruce Almighty. He actually stole the show in that movie. He was great when he was kind of like stuttering throughout the whole.
Yeah, when Jim
And
Carrey was
Jim,
controlling him.
yes, because Jim Carrey was controlling him. He was brilliant in that, and then of course did a great job in the movie Little Miss Sunshine, which
Yeah.
which uh, which which is a great movie. But besides him, the cast is not well-known people from except for maybe Steve Carell.
Yeah.
So I.
Yeah, and it's funny because you see a lot of these people who are in these meteoric kind of epic kind of shows, but yet they don't really do anything that's the equivalent of. You've seen that with Seinfeld. You've seen that in a lot of those things. It's like you're never gonna really be in anything quite as epic as that ever again.
Yeah, I feel like they might get typecast a little bit because even now there's a commercial out there where you see four or five of these characters from The
Yeah,
Office on there. So but that's a credit to them of how great of a job they did. So
yeah,
all right, so let's
definitely.
let's get to it. Number five, Brent, what do you have?
All right, number five. This really speaks out to what I call the cringe factor that really brings out the empathy in you because you feel embarrassed, you feel intense like you're watching a sports match, you don't know what's going to happen, and you're very awkward in every way. And that is Scott's Tots. That is the episode where Michael, in his younger days, really predicted he was going to be so much more than he was then, and he would be so wealthy and influential by that time. He promised a bunch of elementary school kids that if they stick with their schooling and
That's
graduate,
right.
he will pay for their college educations. And it comes time where he has to make good on it. And he was not quite the mega titan of industry that he forecasted. So it just is a cringe festival, Michael. You see him going to the school and he's there and they're honoring him with a dance thing. And even in one of the details of it, he's stopping by this room on the way, or he passes it by actually, and it says the Michael Scott reading room at the school that they consecrated that in his name. And you know, this whole time he's gonna have to break it to these poor
Right.
kids. And the thing is, he wasn't doing it to be a jerk. He really was altruistic in saying, I
Right.
will be this great person one day. But that whole time, and when those kids are like, who's making our lives possible? It's Michael Scott. And on a little side note, he was all dejected on the ride home, and you see Aaron sitting next to him, kind of reminiscing and singing that song that those kids sang about him.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah. That's a good one. And you mentioned cringe, but boy, there's a lot of episodes like that where it sometimes I gotta turn away and just like close my eyes and like, oh my God, I just can't believe he said that. And that is one I forgot about that one. That's a good one. Yeah, but like you said, his heart was in the right place.
well, I think that the joke, a lot of people, there's always like the in your face joke, and then there's always the like sub layer joke that you
Yeah,
got to kind of be a little more introspective to look at. So the main joke is the awkwardness of having to let all these kids down, and you feel it. You know what it's like when you got to drop something on someone, and they're in such a great mood and everything, and you know it. But the funnier inside joke, the deeper level sight joke, is the fact that most people, when they set out in business, they're like, okay, well, I hope I can make a good life for myself. You really have to have an inflated hubris to believe that you're going to be so wealthy in 10 years
right.
that you'll be able to afford like 10 or 12 college educations,
Yeah.
where most people who are successful still struggle with their own two kids.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And you mentioned Aaron. There are not many additions to The Office that I enjoyed. There's two. Obviously, Andy I thought was a great addition. Obviously, Aaron I thought was a very solid addition to The Office. What's your thoughts on Aaron?
I loved Aaron's personality. There was
Me
a girl I
too.
once had a crush on that was like
Yeah.
Aaron. I just love her happy-go-lucky demeanor. And Andy, it's weird because he has kind of like the Michael Scott nerdism
Yeah.
kind of thing, but he has like kind of like that Dwight Schrute malevolence at the same time. And yet he's uniquely an island in and of himself too, because even Michael finds him obnoxious at times.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I thought those two worked. I think later on the other additions didn't work as well, but those two I thought were really great. Yeah, so my number five was actually a two-parter, but I put it together as one, and that's from season four, episode one and two, and that is Fun Run. That's the episode where,
Yes.
which is a great opening scene where Michael, is talking about, what's happening at work, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's hitting Meredith with his car. So, and that leads to, I wrote this down. So it leads to the Michael Scott's Dunder Mifflin Scranton Meredith Palmer Memorial Celebrity Rabies Awareness Pro-Am Fun Run Race for the Cure. So just unbelievable. Obviously the story is that he doesn't want he so wants to be liked and loved by everybody that he's obsessed that they're angry with him for hitting Meredith. So of course, he tries to get out of the way. He thinks it's a curse. He tries to get Meredith to apologize to him in front of everybody. She wants no part of it. He tries to hug her on the on the hospital bed, and they're like, so it's another like kind of like cringeworthy episode. But there's a lot of little subplots there. That's also the episode where Dwight kills Angela's cat.
Yeah.
It's also the episode where we finally find out that Jim and Pam are actually dating.
And
They
Ryan is also now working
yeah,
at his new position.
that's right. Yeah. So just a great episode. It's a two-parter. I just love the fact that the way Dwight says, "Oh, it was just Meredith," and Michael's like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, but so."
I
So
love it too, like even like little moments, like when he had the stripper that he knew present the check and
yeah,
he's like about
yeah.
nursing school.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
for $250 because they had to pay, they originally had 750, but they had to pay a 200 for the check and another 200 for the stripper. So it's like,
I like that. Even like subtle scenes that just really have nothing to do with the plot. Like he walks by Toby, he just pulls his pants down very
yeah,
quick in front of the
yeah,
camera.
exactly. But yeah, him, eating the fettuccine Alfredo, trying to carb up, and of course, doesn't drink any water, so of course he gets himself sick. But yeah, just a great episode. It's a two-parter, but I laughed a lot in this episode. That's why it's my number five.
Even isn't that there the scene where Ryan is trying to call, but he hears Pam's labored voicemail outro meet greeting?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah. So yes, that's why it's my number five. All right, number four, we have.
Okay, number four, Gay Witch Hunt. This was in the third season.
Yeah,
It's right when we meet Andy Bernard for the first time.
tuna.
Yep, and he meets, and I like that part too, where Karen's like, "What is it with Jim looking at the camera and doing she does a perfect Jim Halpert,
Yes.
mimicking his facial expressions at the camera." And when you look at Michael being I grew up with these people in the 80s and 90s when I started working at places. They're kind of outdated, homophobic kind of
Yes.
humor that is, and I still think one of the high watermarks is when Jan's coming in and he goes, "Listen, I watch Queer as Beef." And she goes, "That's not what it's called." I don't know if people 20 years from now will get that Queer as Folk joke, but
Yeah.
I do think it was pretty funny. And I think another thing that was just really funny was his paranoia. And then Michael Scott trying to fix the situation, but making it worse by showing gay
As
porn to
always.
everybody. He goes, "It's all good. There's nothing wrong with this whatsoever." And you could tell he's just not comfortable looking at it. And then, of
Yeah.
course, the Oscar kiss when
Oh.
he moves in and kisses him. But what's funnier is the joke on top of the joke is that Dwight gets up reflexively and tries to move in to kiss Oscar as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just whenever it comes to race or gender or sexuality, boy, Michael Scott, boy. Whether it's that episode or even Diversity Day, which is early on in that show, those episodes are just tremendous. Yeah, that scene with Oscar, he almost was it looked like he was about to cry too,
Yeah.
Michael. So
And it was also cringy because it was prolonged. He was moving in
yes.
slowly. Like he was like bracing himself.
Right, right.
And I think also too, at least Jim got a prank in from afar because he sent him the Gator gun.
That's right. That's right. That's a good one. My number four is from season three, episode 23, and that is Beach Games. This is the episode where Michael is going to be interviewed for corporate, and he's got to find a replacement. So, of course, in grand old Michael Scott style, let's have a Survivor type way of trying to find out who my replacement's going to be. I just love the fact that he's got Stanley and them in the fat suits. Stanley coming after Jim Halpert real, and Jim's like scared away, and the hot dog eating contest. Running over the coals, I thought was great. Of course, Toby wants to go because he wants to see he wants to see Pam in a two-piece,
Yeah.
bikini. So, but of course, Michael said, "No, someone's got to stay here." So of course,
And
Toby.
of course, Toby looked the most ready for the beach, you know?
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course. So, yeah, just so fun to watch. And then you got kind of like two little love triangles going on at the same time. You got
Yeah.
the Jim, Karen, and Pam thing going on, and you got the Angela, Dwight, and oh God, just blanked.
Oh,
What's Andy? Andy,
Andy.
yeah, yeah, Dwight,
Which he also, Andy gets floats away.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then of course, Angela's like, I'm sorry, I don't hear you. What are you trying to say? Just tremendous. And I think the great part of this episode is the end where Pam walks over the coals and has this great speech, it's kind of towards Jim mostly,
Yeah.
where, what happened to us, we used to be friends. And I thought that was, Pam is kind of like the first couple of seasons, I thought was a little meek and a little kind of didn't really say much. I thought that was kind of like her breakthrough performance, I thought.
Yeah, because she had agency
Yeah.
of herself. Before, she was always trying to adapt to be what other people wanted her to be, and she wasn't going to take it anymore. And so there was all, the symbolic part about her walking over, and all that. And so it was funny because there was a lot of humor in it, but there were also character development
Yeah.
moments in that because of course the idea of like Michael having to choose and
Yeah,
it wasn't even guaranteed Michael was going to get that
right,
promotion.
exactly. Of course, but of course that's Michael. But one of my favorite I think quotes that Michael says is, they're talking about Jim and he goes, "Well, pro, smart, cool, good looking, reminds you of anybody you know?" And then of course the cons, not a hard worker. I mean, I can spend all day on a project and he will finish the same project in half an hour. So that should tell you something. I mean, just tremendous. So yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. Of course, that leads to the breakup of Karen and Jim in a future
Yeah.
episode, and leads to Jim and Pam finally getting together. So yeah, that's why it's my number four. I love beach games. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, it's great.
Oh
It
yeah,
definitely is.
yeah. All right, number three. What do we have?
Number three, again, more about the cringe factor. I really thought the first season was kind of a non-established season. They were trying to get their footing. Even Kevin's character wasn't developed yet at that time, hardly. And, there were a lot of, you could just tell they were trying to find their way. Even Michael Scott even looked different. But I will say, though, the high watermark, in my opinion, at least, Michael, from the first season is Diversity Day, the second
Yeah.
episode. I find it, one thing that was revelatory is that when Kevin was kind of basically reciting that Chris Rock joke, Michael Scott was less worried that people were offended. He was more worried about that Kevin wasn't portraying the joke accurately. He goes, he's butchering it. It didn't even behoove him to think that. Why are we here to begin with?
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
And when he had that, when they put first of all, his remedies always are worse than the initial problem. So when he had everybody put the little tags on top of them, and they had to guess. And I mean, a couple of funny jokes was another cringe moment came from Dwight when they said, say something, that's he goes, well, I'm heavily attracted to Indian women, and Callie's like sitting right
That's
next to him, and
right.
then when they sit there, so they're trying to rely on stereotypes to try to guess, without giving it away, the nationality or the ethnic group. You might say that you're bad at driving. We're bad at driving. He goes, "Oh God, I'm a woman." Like that just totally backfired. But I think it really all culminated when Michael was Kelly wasn't developed yet. She was kind of a serious character in that.
Right.
But yet when he went up to her, he's like, "Oh, Googie,
Oh.
Googie, Googie." Just let him have it. Which I got to point out, Michael, I think it was actually in that first episode of the third season, The Gay Witch Hunt, where if you notice, Jim was with all of them and they were in that seminar. That
Yeah.
was the same guy doing their diversity seminar over at that branch that was in that second episode with
Was that
Michael
Mr.
Scott.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
I'm not
The
I'm
Daffy
not
Duck
yeah,
signature and
yeah,
everything. That was just,
I'm not falling for that, Mr. Brown. Yeah, that was actually my number six. That just missed my list. I
oh,
love that
wow.
episode. I love that episode. And you mentioned the cards and stuff. Of course, Stanley winds up with the black the black cards. So which is so funny to me. But yeah,
Even
that
what was that too with Kevin even doing the Italian thing after the game was already over with,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
But it did
But
show Pam putting her head on Jim's shoulder, and that
that's
was the first thing where body language is saying more than what you can admit to yourself or to someone else.
Yeah, if you remember too, Jim was trying to make a big sale on that episode, and of
Yeah,
course he kept getting interrupted, and then of course Dwight sneaked in, got the sale, and then of course he's all frustrated. He puts the bottle of champagne on Dwight's desk, and then he goes back into the conference room, and that's when Pam puts the head on his shoulder, and they ask, and he's like, you know what, today was a really good day, even though he had lost his sale. You
yeah.
could tell though it was a good day for him because Pam, kind of like, put his head on his shoulder. So yeah, so that definitely was a sign of things to come, I thought, in that episode. So yeah.
Also, that was just a little trivia from the British series. Ricky Gervais played the Michael Scott kind of
Mhm.
character. There was a scene where they did a seminar where the guest is trying to speak and he's trying to insert quotes as if they're co-heading this thing that Michael Scott was doing that same thing with Mr. Proud. He's like, interrupting him and clarifying things when Michael Scott was not asked to be part of this seminar. So there were little subtle things. For those of you who don't know the British version, I would say Michael Scott was kind of an improvement because David Brent, who was Ricky Gervais's character, he had
Mhm.
that cringe kind of thing, but there was a little more humanity in Michael Scott, in little splashes of humanity more throughout the series. So,
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, yeah, you definitely get that, especially as seasons go on. Um, you could tell that, yeah, he's just a person that just wants to be loved.
oh
And
yeah,
that's basically it. So yeah, great number three. Like I said, that was close on my list. My number three is from season two, episode 22, and to me, it has maybe the most crucial moment of any of the Office episodes, and that's Casino Night.
yeah.
Obviously, the end where, Jim professes his love for Pam finally, and they have that kiss at the end, and of course that ends the season, so you don't know where that's going to go. But there's other great stuff in there. Of course, you got Michael, inviting, his realtor, who is actually his real wife in real life,
Yeah.
and Jan, he's got two women, and one of the great quotes which I love. He's trying to make a poker reference. He goes, "Ah, I got two queens coming, and I'm dropping a deuce on both of them." So it's like just hilarious. So,
Yeah, Carell directed that one too.
oh, do you really? Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
But I like
So,
it. Do you notice too? There was a little uncomfortable moment where Jan was kind of all over Jim.
yes, yes, very much so. When they were outside, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, but even the little subplots here, Toby, of course, taking all this money away from Michael, which of course, he's enjoying himself. But Kevin saying that he won this poker tournament back, a few years ago. Yeah, he's getting his ass kicked by Phyllis. So just a great way to end season two, I thought. It
Was
definitely.
that, was that the one, Michael, where they said at the beginning, can we do all this? And Toby said, is this really the best environment for this
Oh
kind of thing?
yeah, yeah. He
Yeah.
want he wanted the charity to be for the Boy Scouts of America, but of course he's got Hooters catering it. He's got all this gambling and alcohol throughout the course, and Toby's like, I don't think this is the best environment. Yeah, so great. And to me, that was the first episode where he had like the little dramatic moment with Jim and Pam, because when Pam says, "I'm sorry, you misinterpreted our friendship," and the tear that comes out of his eye, boy, that was a crucial moment, I thought, for
Because, we can all identify with that.
Oh my
We
God,
have
yes,
always, any one of us have been either friend zoned at one time,
yeah,
or the unrequited love is a theme that's as old as time.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
Especially if
that
you know the person does like you, but they're choosing not to.
Right, right, and of course that leads to, of course, Michael and Jan. That leads to other things as well. I love the little subtlety of, when she gets into the car and she has actually an overnight bag, in the passenger seat, thinking that she was going to stay with Michael, not knowing
Yeah.
that he's got this other girl over there. So yeah, a great episode, and that's why it's my number three. All right, we're getting close, Brett. Number two.
Number two, I want, I think of the cooking industry, how it's made a lot of people thinking that if they just go to cooking school, they'll become the next Emerald. So it gets a lot of people who are quixotic, have this ambition that's not going to quite. And I also think at a certain time, the movies were like that too, where everybody thinks as long as they have a screenplay that, or if they just make a little movie or something, that they're going to be the next Francis Ford Coppola. So that brings up Threat Level Midnight
Right.
in the few episodes before Michael Scott actually leaves the series.
Yep.
And so we're seeing Michael finally piecing together after years of filming his what he thought was his opus of the Michael Scarn spy James Bond kind of character. And it just is horrific in every level. He borrows from so many different genres. Like Creed is Cherokee Jim, who's like Mr. Miyagi teaching him how to do hockey so he could prevent a terrorist event from happening. But of course, there are just so many bad moments in that film, such as he pretends like Catherine Zeta Jones was his Michael Scarn's wife, but you could tell the picture of them together was cropped. And then it has a picture of him. This is very subtle, but if you pay attention, there's a picture of Michael Scarn at the grave of Mrs. Scarn, and he's in anguish. And I'm like, who would have someone take a picture of you at that moment? And like other little things, like for example, it says the White House, and there's an exterior shot of the White House, except the fountain isn't moving, so it's just a still
Right.
photo. And of course, like one of the odd moments playing Billy Joel's "Running on Ice," which was not one of his hit songs.
Yes,
I thought that was kind of interesting,
that is
but
interesting.
it was so improbable. But the thing is, Michael put everything he had into it. High watermarks for me in it, of course, was like how I explained before, Michael. There's the joke within the joke. So yes, there's that scene where he shows Toby getting his head blown off, and it just explodes like five different recuts of that scene.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, if you notice, right before he shoots Toby, Toby just closes his eyes. So I
Yep.
don't think that he told Toby his character was going to get killed. He probably just asked him to close his eyes because anyone who's about to get killed is going to act scared. Toby's just sitting there calmly and he just closes his eyes as he's about to get shot. And I thought that even Jim was good with that golden face
Yes.
character. Even that cringe line of, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to dig up your dead wife and hump her. No, it was just. And the thing is, Michael had evolved during that time. So he's trying to watch it with Holly, and he's trying to
Mm,
say, do I want to kind of go by this boulevard of broken dreams path that I've always been on, or do I want to accept my new rat? So even among the laughs, there was kind of a development thing. That's why Michael at the end was like, you know what? No, it is bad. And he just has fun with it after because he knows he's about to let that part of him go, that he wanted to be this comedy genius. He wanted to be all these things. And there is a point, Michael, that I think the best of us, even if you're talented, there are 20 million times more people who don't ever really catch that star than who do.
yeah.
And it doesn't even mean you have to be, having a lack of talent, but a couple other things too. Michael Scott didn't even realize that when he was editing the movie that the president turned out to be a bad guy, but yet at the end the president calls him for another job. But the kicker though, and this is something you had to have seen the full version on Peacock because it has some bonus scenes.
Yes.
There's a scene, Michael, where they've done this in a few movies like Wayne's World or something, where either the credits are rolling and the characters break the fourth wall and they're talking to the audience in the theater. So Michael and Dwight are going, what are you guys still doing here? The credits are over. Hey, get out of the theater, go home. There's popcorn on the floor. I bet this guy loves popcorn. Come on, go. It's time to go. Well, first of all, it doesn't really work. They don't have the humor and they're not big stars like that. And it's not, but the funny thing was to film a sequence like that, you have to assume that people are going to be watching that at a movie theater.
Yeah, right.
As if people
Absolutely.
are going to fork over money to see Threat Level Midnight.
Yeah. You made a great point about Michael and Holly. It's funny. That was like kind of the first time they had a little tension between the two of them as a couple. obviously they had attention before that because he was in love with her and she was with someone else. But this was like the first time I think they had tension as a couple because
Yeah.
she was not enjoying the movie, and he was so proud of this thing. And then, like you said, then he realized, this is a bad movie. I should take it for what it is. But that was the first time where she wasn't laughing with them, and they usually have the same type of sense of humor, whether they're doing the same voices or kind of like looking at each
Yep.
other. So this is the first time that I thought that Holly was not into what he was into.
Oh,
So that was
they were totally misaligned. And I do have to
yeah.
throw in one more Easter egg. Do you remember the episode where the other branch, the Scranton branch absorbed the other branch, and they all
Yep.
came for their first day? Do you remember there was that real hefty guy Michael wanted him up on that table, and he just
That's
quits right there.
right.
There, in one of the outtakes of Threat Level Midnight, it shows him as one of the characters like working the door in that nightclub that Michael
Oh
Scott
my
goes to. Which, if you
God.
put two and two together,
Tremendous.
Michael Scott had that, because that, don't forget, that guy quit the first day.
That's
So,
right.
which
Yep.
means that Michael Scott must have had that guy during his first shift at work film a scene
So
for
to
that
see
movie.
him, that's tremendous. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brent. Isn't Pam's mother play the sexy nurse?
Yeah.
And the look on her face when she sees him, when
Oh,
she
and that
sees him
cringe
up.
scene of like, yeah, him seeing her, and all of a sudden you see the blipping of the telemetry monitor. Just,
Yes, yes, exactly. That's a great one. Yeah, that's really good. And you're right. That's the same season where Michael left too, right? There would
yeah, actually,
before
a
that.
few episodes before he
Yeah,
left. Yeah.
wow. That's amazing. So yeah, that's a good number two. My number two is from season two, episode 12, and all I gotta say is George Foreman Grill, uh, where he burns his foot on the George Foreman Grill. I thought, from me, as far as funny episode, this is right up there, man. I love it. He starts off right away where he's calling Pam in a panic, and of course then he comes in with his foot in a bubble wrap, and there's Jim pop popping the bubbles. And then again, it's the need for Michael Scott to have people cater to him, to like him. He wants people to take care of him. Of course, asking Pam to put the butter on his foot. Though, what is that? What was the name of that butter? Crock.
Yes. Oh
Uh,
God.
what's the name of that
Country
butter?
Crock, wasn't
Country
it?
Crock. Yeah,
Yeah.
Country Crock on his foot. She's like, no, I'm not doing that. But yeah, just I love like yeah. Listen, I enjoy having breakfast in bed. I feel like waking up to the smell of bacon. Sue me. And since I don't have a butler, I have to do it myself. So most nights before I go to bed, I will lay 6 strips of bacon out on my George Foreman grill. Then I go to sleep. When I wake up, I plug in the grill. I go back to sleep again. Then I wake up to the smell of crackling bacon. It is delicious. It's good for me. It's the perfect way to start the day. Today I got up, I stepped onto the grill, and it clamped down on my foot. That's it. I don't see what's so hard to believe about that.
Yeah, I love it
Oh,
too. How there's that narcissism of that. How dare you make me feel like the odd guy out? This is normal. You guys are weird for not embracing my
right.
reasoning.
Yeah, exactly. And of
And then,
course,
then you're right too about his absorbing the victim role the night he
yeah.
wanted to be nightingaled.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Dwight's the one that wants to save him, so he goes out there, tries to save him, crashes into the light pole, suffers a concussion, and then of course he becomes all nice to Pam, and they're wondering why he's so nice, and then not realizing that he's got a concussion. And of course, all the other things that happens there, where he brings in the guy from the wheelchair. He's got a picture of Forrest Gump, and then a
Yes,
picture of
yes.
this is a picture of Tom Hanks in Big. He says it's from Philadelphia. It's not from Philadelphia. It's from Big. So just and then so he talks about that, and then then they want to drive Dwight to the hospital because they feel he's got a concussion, and then there's Jim spraying the both of them with water, because they're all both acting up. And of course, the last scene, which is great, as they wheel Dwight into the MRI, the CAT scan, there is Michael Scott trying to put his foot into the CAT scan to see what's wrong with his foot. Just to me, I think just laughs upon laughs. I love this episode. It was close to being my number one, but to me, it's one of the funnier episodes I think they've ever did.
Well, you know what I think also is another thing Michael Scott does because he's aware that the cameras are on him.
Yeah.
So sometimes he tries to appear really philosophical, and it always backfires because he is an expert at malapropisms. Now, malapropisms, you use a wrong word when you're thinking of a different word. A lot of people do that when they try to use multiple syllabic words, because they try to sound more intelligent, but they say the wrong words. And there were a couple of occasions where he did that. I remember one where he said, "I'm very much into giving to charity. You could say I'm a philanderer," and that one when he was in that survivor mode and he goes, "These animals are ingenious to this region," like stuff
Yes,
like that.
right. It's great. It's a great thing about Carell and the fact that I wonder if like there's some actors I don't know if could pull it off because some of the things that he does, you want to hate you should hate the character, but you realize the like you said the sentimentality and the heart that he has. That he's just a guy who just wants to be loved and liked. That's all it is. Like he never called his employees. They were his friend. He wanted to be friends with everybody. It seemed like, except for
Yeah.
Toby, obviously. But yeah, and this is one
Well,
of these episodes.
yeah, and
Yeah,
he had compassion leak out of him. Like I think the
yeah.
best scene where he was at his best was when Pam was at that art show
Oh,
and
great,
when
great
he
point.
showed up and he just made her cry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and even very subtly back to my number five with when he hit Meredith with the car. That's the same episode, like I said, when Angela lost her cat, and he even said her name. He goes, "Oh my God, you lost Sprinkles!" Like he remembered the cat's
Yeah.
name. So that I always thought like he had thoughtfulness to him, which I thought was great.
Yeah,
So
like that one when they did the gift baskets and he remembered that one customer's daughter was allergic to peanuts or
yes,
something, or yeah.
yes, excellent. Yeah. All right, we're here. Number one. What do we got?
Number one, and like I said, Michael, there are sometimes where we do these lists and it's so easy, it's brain work, and then sometimes we had to kill a lot of our darlings with this because what 200 episodes, you got to narrow it down to five. I
Yeah.
wanted to include something that was a little different off the beaten path because usually the standard formula is a main storyline and an alternate A storyline and a smaller B storyline.
Hmm.
This one was just one main storyline, and this was Dinner Party. And this is where Michael and Jan hosted a dinner party with the ultimate cringe experience. But the funny thing about Dinner Party was it had its laughs, it had its embarrassing moments because we've all been in places where we just wanted to get the hell out of there. You could just already tell you were in for a storm of epic proportions. But not only that, it also revealed so many things about relationships and characters. So when they come over, Michael kind of tricks them into getting out of work
Yeah.
so they traps them into coming over, and Jim and Pam are reluctant, but right away Jan checks Pam when Pam's nice enough to bring wine, which is a customary thing to do. And she goes, "Oh, good. I could use this for cooking or something in the
Right.
future." Which, and then, but if you notice, like, so you're really already Jan's that 2 seconds later, they're at the stairway and Jan has a giant Andy Warhol like exhibit of her with different colored
That's
squares of
right.
the
Yeah.
same pose. But hers is bigger than any celebrity's Warhol I've ever seen. Okay. And then she has two offices. So all the other two bedrooms are her offices. One for she strikes Pam again. We have to leave this separate, like you with your doodles or something like that.
Right.
And
Yeah. That's
and
right.
Pam's like, "I don't care if she insults me. I just want to eat." Well, then Jan lays it also on them that the food's going to take 3 hours to make.
The
And
Asabuco. Yeah.
yes, and then it kills me when they go, "What nice bench?" And they go, "No, that's where Michael sleeps." She goes, "I have issues sleeping with space." And he goes, "No, it's more comfortable than it looks." And he just looks so uncomfortable. So you're really, yeah. So there's the laugh level, but you're really seeing a very noxious relationship, a very toxic
Yeah.
kind of interaction that doesn't belong there, with Michael obviously being the empath out of the two and her being the stone cold narcissist out of the two. But it even just escalates. I think of moments like when Jan plays that. First of all, she's emasculating Michael by playing that Hunter's song and dancing seductively to his music.
Yeah.
And then she's
Right.
grabbing Jim's arm
Jim.
and he's just totally not getting
Get the
into
lip
it.
balm.
And I even like it when Dwight brought his date over, and it's such a weird little moment. It doesn't really stand out, but she goes, "Oh, so what's in this?" And Dwight's like, "Hey, hey, hey, like, what are you doing talking?" Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and another moment, I call them like not Easter eggs, but subtle moments that if you don't really pay attention because so much other stuff is going on, you're not going to catch it. But when the cops arrive for the domestic disturbance, Dwight tries to assist him, and one of the cops says, "Not now, Dwight."
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. I'm gonna keep talking because this is also my number one.
Oh, then take it from there. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
wow. We
yeah.
find the one we agree on is the one, that one.
Yeah, yeah. It was,
Oh,
I
then you take
laughed.
it from here.
Yeah, I laughed. I cringed. You're right. I love when Jim goes out and says, Michael Jan seem to be playing their own separate game, and it's called "Let's see how uncomfortable we can make our guest," and they're both winning. Yeah, just, I love, like you said, subtle little things when they go into that room of the candles, and Jim gets a waft, and he like turns around, and looks at the camera, I'm like, whoa, like he just little stuff like that, and then of course, like you said, Jan's got her eye on Pam because she because she walked in on Michael naked. She thinks that now, she wants in on Michael. So
Yeah.
stay away from my man. So
I see the
which
way you look at
yeah,
him.
same way to look at him, and even Angela pipes in. Yeah, I've seen the way you look at him too. Like oh my
Or
God.
I even like another subtlety is when she's singing that song by Hunter, you took me by the first, it cuts to Andy for a second, and he harmonizes with it. Woo-hoo! Like,
And I love when they're playing the game, and of course Jim's got to fuck around with Michael, so he's got his name is Tom, and you're going on a cruise. He's just
or
like
what was
fucking
that when Michael
around.
does that obnoxious thing? We got it, that. And she goes, honey, just tone it down. He goes,
No,
no, they're laughing. Look at Jim's laughing. It zooms in on Jim, and there's not even a remote smile.
yeah, and it rhymes with Barnold Schwarzenegger,
Oh,
Tom Cruise.
the TV also.
Oh my God, the plasma TV. Oh my God, this is my pride and joy.
$200 and it's mounted to the wall.
And of course, it's one of the few episodes, Brent, where that's the one episode I definitely started feeling bad for Michael because you
Yeah.
you see that how this woman is really treating him, whether it's, like I said, like I said, the small bed or all the stuff that she's got. She got two rooms of her own, and she's not really contributing to anything. He's the one that's really working out there, and she's just, being out there and not doing much of anything at all since she got fired. So that was the start of me really feeling bad for Michael. Like he's got to get out of this relationship. So,
I think
so
that was because sometimes, don't forget, sometimes we always see like the antagonist and all that. We think this guy's, but then if you look at another slice of their life, they're the ones getting beaten on.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And
And
it
I
does, it
love.
makes you have empathy. It makes you feel like, because I actually felt as much empathy for Michael as I did anyone else who had to attend that gathering.
Yeah, and I read somewhere too where they were talking to the writers and they thought the episode was getting a little too dark. And that's where Michael came up with the line where they're talking about the vasectomies. And that's where he came up with the line with snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. And so that supposedly lightened the mood a little bit because they thought it was getting a little too dark.
There
Um,
was a malevolent vibe.
yeah, it was. It was. Another great scene too is when when Jim goes to Dwight's date and says, "Can I have your email? I got so much to ask you." Email? What's email? Uh,
Or when with the way Steve Carell looks at her after he's dipping his food. Now,
it's
if
wonderful.
he sold this is the thing where Steve Carell is a genius, because if anyone
Yeah.
else sold that line, they would have done it for less. But he goes, Jan, don't you know I have soft teeth? You know this. Like he sold it like he really believed it. Like I have
Yeah.
this condition. Where another lesser actor would have sold it for a laugh and made it a little more asinine the way he said it. But Michael Scott said it like as if it's really a bad condition of his, like anyone who's in a
Yeah.
wheelchair or as this. I have soft teeth. Again, I don't know how he did that with the straight face that he had.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Yeah, it's to me it's the funniest take on Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. It's got,
Yes.
yeah, it's got that type of vibe to it. Yeah, so we agree on number one. I absolutely love this episode. It's funny, it's cringe, it's the best of The Office to me in that one episode. That's why it's my number one as well.
Oh, I think
Uh,
so. I think it sets the stage for advancing the characters as well. So it's like what you said, it's on multi levels of
yes.
that you can enjoy it with.
Now, before I let you go, what did you think of the finale? Were you a fan of the finale? Were you like
Uh,
I thought it was okay. What
okay.
was your thoughts? What's your
I
thoughts?
thought it was okay. I wasn't really a big fan of anything they did after Michael left.
True. Yeah.
There were a few good. You know, I look at it like this, Michael. After Steve Carell left, I looked at it as like a band whose best era is behind them, but they still put out an album with maybe one or two good songs, but they're no longer the legend that they were. And that's the way I view the post Steve Carell era. And so it's weird. For the first part of the episode, I could care less really even really what was happening. It felt like they stayed around too long. But yet I thought the ending when Creed showed up and they're all hanging out in the office, that little montage at the end was priceless.
Yeah, and I love the way they brought in Carell. I struggle with this because supposedly Carell didn't want to have too much lines. He didn't want to overshadow the other characters in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the prank that Jim pulled, the prank where he says, I can't be your best man. And, obviously he brings in Carell. Of course, he's got that great line where he says something to the effect of, it's like watching my kids grow up and marry each other. It's like,
It's every parent's dream or
very,
something
very
like
extreme,
that.
yeah. But part of me wishes he would have gone back to the office with them,
And hung out with them.
and hung out with them. I think that would have been a nice touch. But like I said, I read somewhere where he didn't want to be a part of that. He wanted them to kind of be on their own. But to me, I thought the episode where Michael's last episode, I thought to me was a little bit more emotional than the
So
finale.
yes, I did
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
I think in the finale, like I said, there were a couple cool moments, like Jim's
yeah.
surprise which way. There, I gotta admit though, there was one funny thing when Ryan came back and he goes, I'm finally ready for commitment and stuff, but yet he leaves the baby.
Right, right, yes, exactly.
But I thought, you know what I thought was genius about that? Because a lesser show would have made it so freaking sappy and melancholy at the end
Mm,
to just incite tears. And there were moments of that where you kind of feel like a gulp in your throat because anyone who says goodbye to people when
sure.
an era of your life ends, but yet even amongst that drama in that montage, it still shows Creed when it zooms out. He goes to the cops holding. It goes, "Okay, guys, let's do this," and they
Yeah,
take him away.
yeah, that was a great way to end it. But the way the finale with Michael, I thought was perfectly done,
Yeah,
and the fact that he gives all the audio to the guys, and then you see him walk off, and there's no sound, and him and Pam, you see them talking, and they hug, and that's the way it ends. I thought that was the perfect way for them to send off Michael in that sense.
I totally agree with you, Michael, and I would even go a step further. If the series ended that way, and at that point, it would have
Yep.
been just as good.
Yep, perfect. But it probably would be up there with one of the top five season finales because I thought that one was played
Oh,
perfectly.
and when he had to talk to Jim
Oh,
and Jim caught on to what was going
yes.
on, he goes, "Just go. We'll see you tomorrow," or something.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Although even the part where he had to call Holly because he said, "I can't do this. I can't leave." Where he had to call Holly, and just hearing her voice got him back into saying, "All right, I know I need to go to Holly and not stay here." Because there was that scene which I think is one of the most to me the most emotional scene of any of them is when it's simple. It's Jim and Pam and I think Toby was there. They're eating lunch and he's Michael just sits in the back and he's sitting there and he's watching them and he just starts to cry, realizing that he's gonna miss this. And they ask him like, well, what's wrong? And he's like, no, it's my shoes. They're too tight. And he takes off the shoes, and I thought that was played perfectly. So yeah, to me that episode to me, like you said, and you said it perfectly. If they had ended with that episode, I think it would have been played perfectly.
yeah, especially with him cutting out the microphone because then it took them out of that nucleus of the cameras rolling.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
Michael was leaving that, and I thought that would have been perfect. They could have ended the show there, and no one would have felt a loss of anything.
What is your top five Office episodes? Please comment down below. Brent, as always, it's a pleasure, my friend.
Michael, it's a pleasure working with you as well as being friends with you. And I
Yes.
look forward to many more. And how many times in life can you say, I'm friends with this person, but I'm also a fan of their work?
Thank you. Same here. You're the reason why I do this. You're the reason why I got through COVID. You're a big part of my life, Brent, and I'm honored to call you my friend. Thank
As
you
you
so
are
much.
with me, Michael. Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody. And please subscribe and hit that like button.
Thank you, brother. All right, man. Top of the hops is here. Don't worry. Be hoppy.